Well, I watched Scream 7, and I just gotta say that that will definitely not be my favorite scary movie of 2026. Yo, what is up, horror movie fans? My name is Andrew, aka Noezone, and today I'm gonna be giving y'all my spoiler-free review of Scream 7. And Scream 7 is one of those movies you could honestly make a movie about how this thing even got made, because it's went through a firing of a main actress, to multiple rewrites, to multiple directors signed on, just so many zigzags in the development of this movie. And spoiler alert, you can see that in the final product. And all of those things fed into my expectations going into the movie, which first up, I did not have high hopes walking into Scream 7. I actually was a big fan of where the franchise was potentially heading after Scream 5 and 6 with the Radio Silence directors and with Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, along with the actor and actress that played Mindy and Chad. Just that core four that they set up was just really cool. All the characters were likable. I thought Radio Silence did a good job of setting up very memorable kill sequences, even though they did kind of repeat some old mistakes. Notably with the ending of Scream 6, I was not crazy about that killer reveal even when I first saw it. And it was one of the only times that I lost faith in them a little bit in their Scream movies, besides the Chad and Mindy plot armor in Scream 6 as well. And I love Scream 5, especially after this most recent rewatch. It might be my favorite sequel, but I won't spoil that for my ranking. And I will be doing a Scream franchise ranking at some point, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications to check that out when it drops. So now that y'all kind of know how I felt about Scream 5 and 6, going into 7 and not having any of those stars that I liked and having a completely different creative team just really left a sour taste in my mouth, and I really debated if I even wanted to see this movie, to be honest. They also just pulled a ton of desperate moves with bringing back Kevin Williamson, who was the writer of 1, 2, and 4, to direct Scream 7 and to have some sort of a story credit, even though I do not think he wrote this entire script. And bringing back Neve Campbell as Sidney felt desperate as well, and with them bringing back dead characters like Matthew Lillard's Stu Macher, which was just weird. And it felt like they were just playing into fan theories that have been going around since the Scream 3 original plot got leaked, that Stu Macher was still alive. So all of those led me to be very cautious going into Scream 7, and now I'm going to get into my actual review of my thoughts of Scream 7, starting out with my positives. And first up, I'm going to talk about the opening sequence. And the Scream franchise is known for having very creative and witty openings, and they always have the task of just setting the mood of how the entire film is going to be. And I feel like Scream 7's opening on its own is a really good opening. I just had a lot of fun with it. I thought the couple was pretty fun to watch, especially the boyfriend being like a super big horror nerd, which made him a very relatable character to me, and it helped me see myself in the situation. I thought it was very subversive, and I liked how Ghostface ended up showing up in that opening as well. I thought the kills were pretty brutal, and they set the tone for the kills in the rest of the movie, which is going to be another positive, because these were some of the most creative and most effective kills in the entire franchise. And I am one of those people that has loved the Scream franchise ever since I was introduced to it, and I binge watched all the movies in one sitting back when there was only 4. Well, not in one sitting, of course, but in one week when they were all on Netflix. But one of my complaints since the first time that I had watched them was that the kills were pretty lackluster in comparison to other horror franchises. Not saying that they were bad kills, but they were just kind of basic. They were just regular stabs. They didn't really get creative with them a lot. But in Scream 7, they definitely changed that. There are 2 kills in particular that rank in my top 5 kills of the franchise easily. One involving a bar and one involving a school play. That's all I can say without getting into any spoilers. But both of those kills were super fucking dope. I will say there was this one complaint I had with some of them, and that's the fact that they used CGI to assist them. It was very small instances when they would do it, but I did notice it when it would happen. But it's not enough of a complaint for me to throw it in the mixed section or the negative section of the review, so I'm gonna let it slide. Another thing that I liked about the movie was seeing Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott being a mom, which was just a new thing for her character, and I love that she named her daughter Tatum after her friend in Scream 1, and Sidney and Tatum's dynamic with one another was also a highlight for me. Even though sometimes Tatum can be kind of unreasonable with some of the stuff she's arguing with her mom about, like she's almost trying to join the family business of having trauma, which was just really weird, and I don't think that came off in the way that the screenwriters intended to. Also, another positive that I didn't think I was going to have going in because of the casting choice, but Sidney's husband Mark was pretty badass. There were multiple action scenes, I'll say, that he really proved his worth of why Sidney is with this guy. And after them not bringing back Patrick Dempsey as Mark Kincaid from Scream 3, it made me forgive it a little bit. And speaking of Sidney Prescott, Neve Campbell's performance as Sidney in this movie is great, just like it always is. And I feel like she did bring some new layers to her performance with her being a mom this time. So not only was it new in a writing sense, but it also was new for her performance, which I enjoyed. And like I mentioned when I was talking about Mark's character being a good fighter, some of the action in this movie is really good. Specifically, a sequence in Sidney's house was pretty fucking cool. I just like the way that whole scene played out from an action level. I just thought it was really suspenseful, and there was a scene with a wall that was cool as well. The only reason I'm really bringing up details about that one is because all of that is in the trailer, but there's more stuff within the scene if you go watch this. And my last positive that I have of Scream 7 is going to be the score, because the original composer of Screams 1 through 4 came back. Marco Beltrami, hopefully I didn't butcher his name, but that is the composer. I feel like he did a good job of setting the vibe that this is going to be more in line in terms of tone with the first 4 Scream movies. So I think bringing him back was a wise move, especially when you brought back Kevin Williamson and Neve Campbell. But those are my only positives with Scream 7. That's probably the least amount of positives that I've had with any of the Scream movies. The only one in comparison being Scream 3. But now it's time to talk about the things that I felt mixed on in Scream 7. And first up is going to be the cinematography, because Kevin Williamson has only directed one movie before, and I've never seen it. When he did get announced as the director for this movie, I did look into it, and it does have pretty poor reviews. But you can kind of tell that he's only directed one movie before, because there are some sequences he sets up where I think he does a pretty good job of getting suspense. Sometimes he shoots the action very well, but for the most part, this is one of the worst looking Scream movies. The only competition being Scream 4, because that thing has a Vaseline filter over the camera. But the next day after I watched Scream 7, I went back and watched Scream 6, and my God, that movie looks so much better. It really makes you start to miss the little things of Scream 5 and 6 that Radio Silence brought to the table. But I was just not a fan of the look of Scream 7, but it lands itself in the mixed section because there were some well-directed scenes from Kevin Williamson. And if he comes back to direct Scream 8, being on a more positive note, I hope he evolves even more as a filmmaker by then, just like from what I've heard he did from his first film to this film. And the next thing that I felt mixed on in Scream 7 has got to be the pacing, because this movie moves way too fast at parts. I will say that the first act of this movie moved pretty smoothly, and I liked how the opening went from the stuff with Sidney and getting reintroduced to her and her family, or not reintroduced, but reintroduced to Sidney, but introduced to her family because we haven't met them before. Just the way that those things flowed together, even down to the first kill, I thought all of that was done great in the first act. I really like the pacing of that first 20 to 30 minutes of the movie. But after that, this movie is moving way too fast and not developing anything properly. It just feels like they're throwing stuff at the screen, and nostalgia and all these type of things and character interactions, and just expecting you to buy into the story that way. But it's just not working, at least in my opinion. And I feel like this is a good place for me to transition into the things that I just straight up didn't like about Scream 7. My first negative is going to be the script for this movie, because this is the weakest screenplay in the entire Scream franchise. Like, if I was doing a tier list, it wouldn't even be in the same tier as the second worst. And the fact that Kevin Williamson even has a writing credit on this movie is just embarrassing for him, to be honest, because almost every film that he has written that I've watched, I have thoroughly enjoyed the scripts for them. I thought they've been all very witty and clever, and this film just didn't have any of his trademarks, so I really do think they slapped his name on this script and he added like ideas in there. But I think Guy Busick, the other screenwriter, had most of the screenplay. I will say that is me just kind of assuming that. I'm sure more stuff will come out about this movie later on, about the development process. I hear they're making a behind the scenes documentary, so I will probably watch that, because I just got to know what happened with the script and why it's so bad. But another potential reason of why the script is the way it is probably because they had to rewrite it like twice, because after the Melissa Barrera firing, you basically had to pivot in a completely new direction. They had a director signed on, I think Christopher Landon, who did Happy Death Day and Drop. And I've seen some stuff saying that they had a completely different script for the Radio Silence version of the movie, the Christopher Landon version of the movie, and then they had to do like a $500,000 rewrite. I'll probably pop up the news article where I saw that. But that expensive of a rewrite after Kevin Williamson signed on. So they probably had to like rush through this thing to get it made, even though it came out a whole 3 years after Scream 6. All right, future Noezone is here. And while I was editing this video, I forgot to add 2 negatives, which I couldn't believe that I forgot one of them. And one of them is the Ghostface reveal of this movie is the worst in the franchise. It's just laughably bad. When that killer took off their mask, like my entire theater had zero reaction. It actually reminded me of this Family Guy meme right here. And also the Ghostface reveal was really bad also because of this second negative that I'm about to mention. And it's that certain characters will just disappear entirely from this movie with no explanation. And without saying too much, it did remind me of like one issue I have with Scream 2, but it's much smaller of an issue in that movie compared to this. But yeah, once you get to the third act, you'll be like, I haven't seen them in too many scenes. And I'm not just talking about the killers, I'm talking about characters that aren't killers as well. So yeah, I just had to add those two because those were really big negatives that I just completely forgot. So past Noezone can take back over now. But that's enough shit talk about the script for Scream 7. Just know that I was just not a fan of the story of this movie at all. But my next negative with Scream 7 is going to be the characters, because this cast of characters, especially around Tatum's like friend group, has got to be the most lame group of characters in the entire franchise. I don't remember a single one of their names, and I just know them by their personalities only because that they play caricatures of those personalities. They don't have any real human traits that you can latch on to and kind of see them as real people like the other Scream movies. No. We have one that they literally call Creepy Boy. You get it? Because he acts creepy. And the thing is, the guy who plays that character, I like that actor a lot. I really enjoyed him in Gen V. There's actually multiple actors within this movie. I like them in other projects, but here they're just given nothing to do. McKenna Grace, for example, very underutilized, and she's a great actress. But some of the dialogue that they gave her character was just abysmal, which leads into my next negative, and that's some of the acting, because I just was not a fan of Isabel May as Tatum. And I knew that she looked familiar while watching the movie, but I actually looked through her IMDb after I watched the movie, and she was in a show called 1883, which is one of those Yellowstone shows that all of your parents have probably watched, because mine definitely have. And I remember watching some of this show just in passing with her in it, and she is pretty damn good in that show from what I remember. But in Scream 7, there were some scenes where she was trying to convey like frightened emotions, and there's a scene where she's like running in the street and like yelling for help, and it was just laughably bad in my opinion. And I know that's going to be a hot take because I've actually seen a ton of praise for her performance, but I just want to reiterate that I'm not calling Isabel May a bad actress, because I have seen her act well in 1883, but it's more of a diss to the screenplay and what she was given to work with. And I'm hoping that she can win me over more in a Scream 8, because Melissa Barrera didn't give a good performance in Scream 5 in my opinion, but she won me over in Scream 6 because I feel like her acting got tremendously better in the second installment of her movies. I feel like there's a very good chance that could happen with Isabel May's Tatum as well. Another negative that I had with Scream 7 was some of the dialogue in the movie, because none of the dialogue felt natural after the first act. It all feels forced and almost like it's trying to wink at the audience, but not in a witty way like some of the previous Scream movies have done. There are multiple scenes where they're talking about like how good it is to have Sidney back into the fold and like how it's not the same without Sidney. There's even like a joke throughout the movie that she's past her prime, and it all just feels so on the nose. There's also no good commentary in the movie when there's a specific topic that they could have expanded on perfectly and they just chose not to. And to speak on the dialogue a little more, there's a scene in a psychiatric hospital where it is exposition the scene. This one character is saying so many lines at the audience, and it doesn't even feel like he's talking to Sidney and Gale in this scene. It feels like he's talking to us, trying to convince us of something instead of the characters in the movie, if that makes sense. I just can't believe some of these lines and some of these story beats made it past a first draft of the script, which honestly, that's what the movie feels like, that they used the first draft and didn't do any scan throughs, no peer reviews, no editing. They just said, nope, first draft, it's good enough, Kevin and Guy Busick. You can just throw it on there and shoot that motherfucker. And James Vanderbilt, I forgot a third writer on this movie. You're to blame too, sir. And my last two negatives with Scream 7 have got to be the emotional value and the rewatchability, because during the attempted emotional scenes, I just felt nothing. They go for like some of these sweet moments between Sidney, Tatum, and Gale. They just didn't work for me. They almost feel more like tacked on and exploitive more than anything. And the rewatchability is because I am only going to rewatch Scream 7 whenever Scream 8 comes out and I'm doing a franchise watch through. That's literally it. Franchise watch through is the only way I'm rewatching this movie, and it is the only Scream movie I will not own. It really did realize all my fears with this film after all of the desperate announcements and the firing of Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega leaving the project, Christopher Landon leaving the project as well, Kevin Williamson getting hired as a director, director, but not as the lead writer. Why did you make these decisions, Sparkles? Let me calm down a little bit, but honestly, that's just how I feel about the movie. I'm not even gonna do like an overall thoughts thing that I normally do. If you want to go support this movie, go ahead. I'm not gonna make you feel like a villain for it or a terrible person for going to do so. If you want to watch a new Scream movie, go watch a new Scream movie. I just would not recommend it personally as someone who's been a fan of this franchise for so long. It's like the first horror movie franchise that I genuinely fell in love with, and the first Scream movie is tied for my favorite movie of all time. It's literally right beside my Back to the Future poster, which Scream and Back to the Future are the movies that are tied for first, even though that's a Scream 5 poster, but it has all of my favorites in the franchise, so I went with that one. Got a little off topic there, but anyways, this is going to be my scorecard for Scream 7, where I'm going to give it 2.5 out of 5 stars, a 5.5 out of 10, and on my personal scale, I'm going to give it a stream it at home. But if you enjoyed my review of Scream 7, make sure you leave a like on the video. It really helps out the algorithm a lot. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more horror movie content just like this. Make sure you share the video with a friend if you think they would enjoy it as well. Leave a comment with your thoughts on Scream 7, or if you're not going to go watch the movie and you were using this review as your basis to go see it or not, let me know what you think of the Scream franchise as a whole. But thank you if you made it this far for listening to me yap about some movies. As always, guys, it's been Noezone. Peace.